the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo's mecha mania marathon madness for alliteration. Not probably the best choice, but there's an idea for a title to this project that we're now going to do some tinkering and experimenting with. We're just gonna futz around and see if it works. Welcome to the Gaming Corner, where I'm gonna share with you my obsessions, tips and tricks, and insights into one little corner of an incredibly massive world of video gaming. And I'm particularly keen on online gaming. I want to be playing with and competing with other actual people. Not that offline solo storytelling gaming is something that I oppose. It's luxuriously beautiful storytelling when done right. Some stories have been truly epic. Some have been exciting entertainments, but there's a particular thrill to playing and dealing with other people. Playing with and dealing with other people. And of course, there's a lot of different ways of doing that and engaging with others online. So for backstory, for background, you may or may not be familiar with my long-standing, yet to have gone worldwide, virally super mega popular podcast show, the Almost Daily Zencast. Is it because I fail to keep my shows short and simple? Or is it because the content... Because there's plenty of popular podcast shows that are hour and a half every episode, right? Is it because I ask weird questions of myself and then ramble about my thoughts, but don't give it any structure? Is it because I rarely, if ever, have any guests on? Those may or may not all be contributing factors to that show only having a percolating worldwide audience. Curiously, it is not an abject failure. People are tuning in. And if any of you are crossover listening, hello, namaste, thanks for your support, long or short. But for many a moon, I have been contemplating various ideas of what to do either in alternative to, as an alternative to the podcast as I had been doing it, or in addition to, and various, means and ways by which I could achieve it. Now, I looked into focusing on my art and maybe making a podcast or a live stream project, whatever you call that, a live stream show about my attempts to teach myself or improve my art skills. Along the same lines of Tarot Journal, a long postponed audio only or video also podcast. For many a year, the holdup was not understanding and not bothering to, not can't be bothered, which, by the way, even when I use it, I recognize it's a bit of weaponized laziness. It's saying, I was lazy, and also, fuck off. I'm not going to acknowledge my laziness. But human beings tend to be lazy. And when we say, oh, and I just couldn't be bothered about something, we're just weaponizing that laziness as a sort of pseudo-admission. I couldn't be bothered to read your thesis paper that you're developing for school that you'd asked me and a dozen other friends to read for feedback. Anyways, I digress. This is why my regular podcast show is rambly and spirally out of control and way too long. Today, I'm going to do something experimental. Let me finish giving you the backstory. I had wanted the very, very, very first project I wanted to do, for anybody who cares about this kind of minutia, was a tarot-oriented podcast. But for various reasons, not the least of which being I didn't know how to read tarot yet. I postponed that and have framed it that when I return to it, I'm going to frame it as here are regularly intervaled episodes in which I share with you some of my live and or previously recorded over the last several days experiences in teaching myself tarot. Well, plenty of other contextual reasons, and I tabled that project indefinitely. The biggest reason there was that actionable experience in producing the podcast was zero at the time. So I was like, let me just get into podcasting in terms of recording something live by doing it the easiest, simplest, most stripped down way I know how, which is play a little bit of music and chit chat about the gestalt of the world. Thus was born the Almost Daily Zencast, and subsequently its various sub-segments. I was considering for quite some time adding more segments, like I want to do a media review segment where I talk about movies and TV shows. Now, some would say, who cares? Why such meaningless fluff when you deal with such grave and serious matters in the through lines of your main project? Well, we're stuck here. No matter what I've said on the Almost Daily Zencast and any of its various particularly quirky moments where I get into like what most people would describe as their hardcore beliefs. I don't like that word, so I don't like to use the word belief, but I've already rambled and explained that, so tune into the 2-part episode recently over at the Almost Daily Zencast entitled On the Form and Function of Belief, Part 1 and 2. I digress. Yes, and a powerful tool I learned from theater reminds us, like, yes, what you just said is valid. And also this other thing over here, which you may want to automatically oppose, because it is not inside the Venn diagram circle or bubble of that which you just, the idea or the thing identified over here. Those two things can be true. They're not mutually exclusive, right? Like, yes, all the serious things that I bring up and talk about in my show regularly are true. And also, we're stuck here, we're living this life, and there is a demographic of global society that has the luxury time and the disposable income to be enthusiastic fans of gaming and the industry. It's a valid industry, no matter what you may or may not like about it or dislike about it, right? I'm perfectly capable of fully understanding and have occasionally felt the following set of rational feelings. I get it. You can look at gaming and look at the entire world of it and be like, fuck off, what a waste of time. Right? And in theory it is. You could also say that about reading books, like fiction books. Fuck off, what a waste of time. And I'm sure people have held on to that belief. But for as long as there's a thriving market and various tiers of side markets, and it is a viable commerce product, fuck off to everybody who says fuck off. As I was saying earlier, both in the standalone and I believe also in the multiplayer, massive or otherwise, space of the video gaming industry, there's always brilliant opportunity for some deep and impactful storytelling of the kind we think of traditionally in epic theater and in masterwork cinema, right? And film. So, having said all that, I'd long wanted to do... In fact, I have a huge, long-standing list from when I very first got my very first iPad, which is relative to some other people not very long ago. I used to self-identify traditionally as a PC gamer. And as much as I miss that world, I must admit right now that I'm having a thrill and don't lack for a PC to play enough games, because the iPad market has and the iPad technology itself has gotten to a point where they're really quite beautiful, well-presented, and playable games. Not everything is that. And as it is a growing, massive market, one which I also simultaneously have interest in getting into, I have this silly idea for teaching myself how to make app games vis-a-vis the free, amazing tools that are available in the Apple app market, both on the desktop and in the screen devices, to try to make that a side hustle. But I'm just one person, right? So becoming an independent game developer, which would be brilliant, but I have to sharpen up my art skills, and both in physical hand, in real hand, and on digital first. So that's a whole wave, right? You can see the tiers of work that I can't do all at once, and that it's depressing. I've been stewing in all of that, right? Gaming, wanting to make games specifically, not necessarily wanting to play them. The way I want to write books. So I'm not reading a lot of books right now, because then I'm filling my time with other people's content. And not that I've been writing a lot. Shame on me. Boy, have I underutilized the time afforded to me during this pandemic. I coulda, shoulda, woulda finished at least one book by now. And I haven't made a scratch. Although ideas are developing. And as always, friends, the core of my podcast is in essence an inability to get my written and other more higher, more complex, more time, asset, and money-intensive projects at least commodifiably out there and owned, right? Like, this is my podcast. I own this intellectual property. You're listening to ads because it's monetized, etc., etc. I'm part of the... If it's, if slightly delayed, I'm monetizing the development of some of my ideas with some of this podcasting project as I branch out, especially here into this idea of a gaming specific sideshow or separate podcast from the Almost Daily Zencast. I haven't picked the name yet, but the Mr. Zeppo's Gaming Corner. I always debate whether or not I should use the incorrigible. It's part of the brand, but it's not necessary at all times. But Mr. Zeppo's Gaming Corner, Mr. Zeppo's Mech Arena Mania, Mr. Zeppo's Mecha Madness, because, you might notice a trend in the name choices, that is because I'm interested in focusing on a specific subgenre of games available on the iPad, because they're free to play, easy to get into, super thrilling and fun, competitive, and one of my personal all-time favorite kinds of games throughout my life history, right? Although I haven't played as much of them as I've ever wanted to before. And I've certainly never become some sort of leaderboard recognized grandmaster of these games. But with my audience's help, I think I could. So what this little experiment is about, and I just rambled on way too long for an intro, is to share the idea and get into what I think I want to do. Hopefully, theoretically, in the future, in some sort of video live stream, as well as well-edited, slightly more highly produced than this podcast show, videos about specific games, gaming genres, the gaming marketplace, specifically on iPad and on iMac desktops, and also, since I still have one of my multiple devices is still an Android device, on the Android device. Now, I'm not set up yet. Full disclosure, transparency. I'm not ready to live stream the image, the film, or even to capture to hard drive the video of me playing this game. I know that it's possible. I know that I think I have most of the tools necessary. I know that I have the capacity to find out exactly what I need for reals to do it just right and get it and install it and set it up. I just haven't done it yet. And instead of being, where do I start, I realize I gotta be playing the games and making my way up the leaderboards. And that's time consuming and not monetize. In fact, if I want to really leverage my ranking up, I can, could, should, would be spending some money. But we'll put a pin in that, because the whole hyper internal monetization microtransaction trend in gaming is both a blessing and a curse. Some games are ruined. Some otherwise perfectly awesome sounding games have been ruined because of the misdeployment, the poor and annoying, unplayable deployment of ads, and the lofty, ridiculous, overly priced microtransactions. And some games handle it well, and some brilliantly. So put a pin in that whole theme, because we're going to come back and do a special episode about that in not too distant future. I just want to get that opinion out there, right? I'm not opposed to it. Video games used to cost $50 a pop or more, for those who may or may not remember. For those who are used to and normalized to a flood, a gluttony of free-to-play games that you could, in theory, enjoy playing until you get tired of them and then move on to other games without spending a dime, right? Because there's a ton of that. And we'll talk about that. One of the things I want to do as we experiment is I want to get into the regular games market on the iPad and the difference between that and the arcade market on the iPad. And you may or may not have taken the free test drive on that. I have, so I've got my mind sort of wrapped around the difference between the two, whereas I didn't. And fear not, dear listeners, if you don't want to pay for the arcade. There's plenty of great, middle-end, mediocre, horrible, but you might love them, and actually somewhat brilliant games available to download, install, and play for free. Although some will have too much advertising, some will have too much self-promotion of like, here, buy this thing or indulge in this package. And before I move on, for the record, I'm not some noob recently flocking to the gaming market because of the pandemic and lots of free time. I'm an old school, problematic gamer. People have said I have a gaming addiction. But I've also simultaneously lived whole entire years at a time without touching a video game. Okay? So I oscillate back and forth. But I have experience with all kinds of games, from the earliest of the earliest OG MMOs. How many people have played or even remember or even know that of a game called Asheron's Call, Microsoft Turbine Games? I played that game for quite some time. It was brilliant. That was back in the day when there were zero microtransactions inside a game. And let me tell you, I miss that. And I don't want to get into all my commentary about price points versus microtransactions. There's a hybrid, and I think it's doable, and we'll talk about it. Because some apps that are not games have landed on this perfection. But we'll talk about that in other episodes. We'll zoom out and take a look at the app market in general. But zoom back in. So from MMOs to to turn-based RPGs to first-person shooters. From, I've played a little bit on the Xbox, I've played a little bit on the PlayStation. Tragically, full disclosure, my life is such right now that the only gaming device I own is this iPad and the desktop, right? So I'm going to focus on that until hopefully the show becomes a massive success, and then I can indulge in more aggressively owning and supporting other games and gaming platforms and gaming manufacturers. But what I want to do today is with a sort of vigilant focus, I want to just introduce you to the games that I'm currently addicted to, and that I want to anchor this initial experimental audio only sort of bootstrap ourselves into a live stream video production level thing, and introduce to you the mech games that I'm interested in playing with y'all. Because curiously enough, there's an audience of people out there that would rather watch other people play video games and get commentary and discussion and other kinds of content affiliated with it and become a fan of that than play the games themselves. And in a certain way, I get it. I love playing games. When I'm good at a game, which is rare, I'm not pretending I would never claim to be some sort of badass gamer. I'm just an old school gamer. I'm cannon fodder in the economy, in the world pecking order of gaming at large, right? And I've got friends, I know people who own more platforms and can casually, game from a mind-blowing library of games on multiple platforms any given weekend. I do not. But friends, hopefully, as this and my other projects grow, I'll be able to invest and bring to you discussion and diving into exploring the gameplay of lots more games in lots of different platforms. If you like the idea, subscribe on up to whatever I end up calling this show in final production. This is a very early recording. We'll see what the show turns out to look like. Okay, so it'll hopefully evolve from a podcast where I discuss these games and, all the themes already identified, and share with you brief, hopefully well thought out or entertaining audio experiences of me winning and losing in these games. And now, without further ado, what are we looking at inside of Mech Arena Mania? The incorrigible Mr. Zeppo's Mecha Madness Arena. Is there a word for crazy that starts with an A? We'll have to think of that. Anyways, having narrowed it down, because there are far more than just the following Mech Arena style games on the iPad gaming marketplace. These are the ones that I want to sort of talk about, review, nerd out about for this show. Super Mecha Champions, which is very anime-ish, and the only one out of the three where you can jump out of your mech and do things as a real human, which is an interesting thing. And gets, I haven't ranked them all yet, but it's a quirky favorite of mine, although I've played it the least. It's got great music in the lobby. It's got way too many buy this thing, play this thing, and buy this thing. It's got lots of quirky, weird, but also it's clearly a game that's designed for the anime enthusiast market, which is rooted, obviously, out east, or out in the Asian quadrant of the universe. And there, they love little trinkets and things. I'm a little less inclined to buy pets and or cosmetic things, but we'll talk more about that as we do super dive into it. I've played it the least. I've barely gotten broken ground where I just need to start running, like figuring out, making friends, getting into squads, and running matches. There's a minimal. I kind of want to uninstall it and reinstall it because there was a minimal training intro, and I kind of want to redo it and capture my thoughts as I walk through it. But I don't know how to do that without ruining my profile. But we'll have to put a pin in that idea because I would love to do that from scratch with all of these. So we'll be talking about that game soon, especially a special deep dive because I've played it very little. Super Mecha Champions. Now, my top 4 favorites. Oh, honorable mention is World of Tanks because I've always wanted to play it. I've back in when I was a PC gamer, it was either from the same publisher or a similar publisher, but it was World of Tanks or World War of Tanks. I don't know if they're the same game or related or not, but the idea of tanks on a big giant open battlefield fascinates me. But they're also harder. But I haven't played it at all. I haven't even launched it since downloading it. So that's honorable mention. Also Tanks a Lot, which is a 3x3 isometric cartoony build a tank sort of for kids. I don't know how I feel about it being for kids, but it definitely feels like a match game, like a little something. But anyways, I've only played one round in that, and I don't know that I like the control system. But well, it's pretty and it's adorable, and it's got a sort of Build-A-Bear approach to developing your tanks, which makes the garage part apparently potentially super fun. I don't know. But I do better in a 3D environment. I'm not so good at isometric top-down. In another sidebar, it's not in this folder, but I'll be playing it a lot, so I might be featuring it on the show. Because I got a friend who got me into this, and it's similar to Tanks a Lot, kind of reminds me of it, but although at a bigger scale and a different setup. Pokemon Unite. Now that's a whole universe niche genre unto itself, right? If there's a Marvel Cinematic Universe, if there's an any brand cinematic universe, then there's a insert your name here brand gaming universe. Oh, I was going to go with video game universe, which would make it, let's stick with Marvel, the MVGU. That's too many. That's too many. But just gaming. So that's a whole nother thing. There's a Marvel gaming universe unto itself. But separate from that, Pokemon Unite. I have not played any Pokemon game very seriously prior to this, except for Pokemon Go on a phone like 3 phones ago when it first came out. And it overheated the shit out of my phone. I tried to play it during the day. Bad idea. Tried to play it like at 11 o'clock, high noon. Extra stupid idea. But other than that, I've not played any Pokemon game. But I was looking at arena games, and it came up in the marketplace, and I was like, huh. And then my friend is a Pokemon nerd, and we've been looking for, we chat a lot, but we've been looking for a game to play together. And none of the games that I like, my friend likes. But then I was like, Pokemon Unite is arena team online battle arena. I just spelled out the wrong acronym. That would be ATO-ABBA, or something like that. But it's Pokemon MOBA, right? Like Pokemon Mobile Online Battle Arena. And it's adorable and super cute. I don't know that its matching algorithm is the greatest, and or that the population is super large enough yet, because there's clearly people, I don't know, I've been getting my ass handed to me on that game. But I digress. That, I'm not going to play, put a pin in that. I'm not going to play that anytime soon, live on the show or anything. But we're going to get through my top 4 favorite mech battle warfare arena robot mecha games that I already have profiles in, that I already have mechs set up, that I've already am obsessed about playing, and that if I was like a well-to-do millionaire that had nothing better to do and had some sort of, other, if I had money, I would just sit around and play these games until I got sick and tired of it and try to get to the toppiest rank because I don't suck. Oh, super sidebar. There was a space arena spaceship fighter game, right? Similar, but in space. So like Mech Arena, but in space. That I was really, really great at until they totally changed the steering and handling and the physics dynamics. And then I sucked at it. And I stopped playing. And I'm really, really sad because that game sort of looks like it's still available. Hopefully it'll be taken down. It looks like you can log into it, but like there's no one playing and there's nothing you can do, and it's just the intro missions and then like all the ads and the solicitations for microtransactions. But it's still like the handling is broken. Like I can no longer play it, and I was so good at that. At least I felt I was good at that. Like I did, you know. Anyways, dear gaming gods, don't let any of the games I want to feature for this and the future versions of the show do that to me. Okay, here we go. The top 4 games that I really, really like in ascending order that I've been playing obsessively lately that I want to like do a show around. Eventually, like a live stream. You can watch all the explosions and actions with me as I talk about it. Are Mech Battle, War Robots, Robot Warfare, and Mech Arena. And I wanted to like log in and flip through each of them, but I need to do a little research because I don't know. One of the things that has stopped me is that I cannot be bothered to do the due diligence and research as of yet on how to appropriately handle streaming content that is a video game so that I can do it and the video game publishers don't sue me and I can monetize the end result so I can make money from people watching me play these video games. I don't know how it works if I launch a game and you listen to me play it. Let's open up Robot Warfare. Just for the sake of experimentation. Huzzah! The last thing I set to upgrade has upgraded. So I've been hustling that for a hot second. I like this game. There's a lot of features about this game that I really like. I do not like its garage. And I will give my compliments and critiques for each game in a future episode. But of all the garages or warehouses or whatever you call them, this is the most annoying and has the most like obnoxiously repeating bit of like I don't need to hear that noise every 3 seconds, which is the mechs taking one step. Maybe there it is. Each one does it. But I love the gameplay. I love the features, the way, and I love the scale at which they run the arenas. And this is one of the kinds of games that does advertising right. And the music doesn't suck. And the graphics don't suck. But we'll talk more about that another time. I'm not going to launch a game right now because I'm not ready. But there you go. My first bit of pro advice, if you're playing any of these, here's my pro tip advice. If you're a listener and you are like, I'm going to go check out these games, get all 4 of them. Get all 5 of them. Because if you like the anime stuff, that might be your favorite. I don't know about World of Tanks, and I don't know about the other one, Tanks Plus, or Tanks a lot. But the main 5, Mech Arena, Robot Warfare, War Robots, Mech Battle, Super Mecha Champions. I think most of these are also available on Android. So check your app store. On a smaller phone, like the bigger the screen, the better. I don't know about desktops, and I don't know if PC desktop, if the audience, if the player base crosses over or not. They might. Check. That's going to be a game by game thing. But since this is kind of like an iPad market focused show. Let's assume that you're listening because you have an iPad and you're interested in games. And you want to get into one of these 4 games. Get all 4 of them and check them out. Play at least 3 matches in each before you decide. Get a feel for the mechanics, the physics, the targeting, the sensitivity. Adjust, tinker with the settings. In terms of these 4 that I've played the most, I love Mech Arena. And Mech Arena, pro note, when you first launch it and you start playing, it doesn't tell you to set up a login, right? When you finally get prompted to set up a login and link your account, you can log in with Facebook, you can log in with Google, you can log in by setting up an account with the publisher, I can't remember their name, and then using an email and password. So basically you can have 3 characters. It's 3 times the work to level up your character / your mechs. In that game, you get a total of, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mechs. And although I'm doing the exact opposite, playing 5 different mech games, instead of drilling down deep in one, I want to go that way for the diversity, for the entertainment value on the show, right? Play 3, 4, 5 rounds on each, get a feel for it. In Mech Arena, pick one of the logins that's either Facebook or Google and stick with that. Because of the economy in Mech Arena, grinding multiple accounts is ineffective AF. I'm still doing it. I may still do it. What I like is that my primary account is rather high ranked. I was playing Mech Arena while it was in beta here for the United States. Apparently, Mech Arena has been a global game, international game, for about 3 years or 4 years. I haven't done the research. But my sister, who also plays it with me occasionally, which she and I launched our characters at the same time, because we were like, let's play a fun, easy, in and out kind of game that's also engaging. And I was like, I love mech battle games. I know I'm not as... I don't play Fortnite. I probably should. In fact, I'm probably going to double check to see if I have it installed on this iPad and get it. Because I played it on my desktop and I just wasn't good at the controls there. Oh, apparently when the phone call came in, my recording paused, which is great. Someone tried to call me, I don't know who it was, and I was just muttering out loud, wondering out loud if that was going to be recorded, if the buzzing noise was being recorded. And I almost answered it, but then I'm like, but tape is rolling, so that's bad. But luckily, it just hit pause. Smart tape recorder. Thank you. So, I'll have to see if I'm better at Fortnite on the iPad than I was on a desktop. But when I tried it on desktop, I was just not quite as good. But I seem to be... something about the touchscreen seems to be better. I think ultimately it's that I can swivel with one finger and have that not be a joystick, and drive with a regular joystick, which I can't do on an actual physical controller device. I was never good at arena battles or first-person shooters on platformers, on platform like an Xbox or something. But then again, I never played enough. Hopefully, if my show goes viral, I'll be playing all kinds of games on all kinds of platforms, because people will be tuning in, watching, and listening, and supporting the show by getting cheap merchandise, supporting the show with original art, because that's where my art is going to come in full circle. I know that I was focusing on doodling for a while there, but I'm now gonna focus on doodling things like fan art based on the games that I like and that I talk about on the show. And then I'm gonna slap that on a t-shirt and make it cheap, and y'all are gonna buy it. Okay, tune in to the next episode where I get into one of these games and play through, explain the garage, explain the setup, and play through a single match. I'm going to listen to this and see how well it sounds. But thanks for tuning in. Until next time, this has been the pilot episode of the incorrigible Mr. Zeppo's Mech Arena Mania.